Hello, Epic friends. Welcome for our reading this week. We are still in Genesis. We are skipping over to Genesis chapter 40, and we're going to read verses 1 through 23. So grab your Bible, grab your comma journal and a pen so that you can take notes as we go along. You will also be able to reference either in your journal the comma quick start guide, which gives you some helpful tips and hints on how to just engage in this passage a little bit more. There's a video up above also that will help you with those key things in comma, the C-O-M-M-A, and what they stand for, and how you can engage differently in this reading. But we're going to get started. Go ahead and hit pause if you need to find your place. We'll get started. Genesis chapter 40. The cupbearer and the baker. That's the theme of this passage. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected, which means kind of sad. So he asked Pharaoh's officials, who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters were ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." "This is what it means," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon." When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, "I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." "This is what it means," Joseph said. "The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will carry away your flesh." Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he impaled the chief baker, just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. All right. A lot of things happening in that passage. If you are familiar with comma and the quick start guide, you can go on to the next reading. Otherwise, stay here. You can watch the video if that's easier. Otherwise, really quick, we're going to talk about some of the different things in comma. The C in comma is context, what's happening in the passage, what happened before and while this book was being written, what's going on. And the Bible Project videos or the first page of a study Bible are great ways to get an overall view of what is happening and what has led up to this point in this book. The O in comma is observations. What do I see? And so you look at treats without the vowels, TRTS. That first T is the theme. That's what we said was that big bold heading when you start the passage, the cupbearer and the baker. You can then go to the R in treats, and that's repeating words or ideas. Is there anything that gets repeated several times throughout this passage that you pick up on? You can underline those things, highlight those things. The second T in treats is truths about God. Is there anything noted in here that would be true about God that you now know? And then that S in treats is something striking. Did something stand out to you where you're like, wow, didn't expect that, never thought of that, didn't even think about that until now, that you have read about? So yeah, think about those things, something striking. And then the M in comma, that first M is message. And so you're saying, what is God saying? And so you put your specs on to take a closer look, and that's SPECS. So that first S is sins to confess. That P in specs is a promise to claim. Is there a promise that's being talked about in here that God has for people? And the E in specs is an example to follow. Are there examples of the way people are living that you can think about for your life? That C in specs is a command to obey. Has God commanded his people to do something or live in a certain way? And then that S in specs is statements about God. Is there something true about God that you did not know about before? All right, and then that second M in comma is meditation. Think about these things for a while, listen to music, write down your journal. And then the A in comma is application. Now that you have read this and thought about it in a little bit more detail, what are you going to do differently? How are you going to apply it to your life? All right. Thank you, my friends, and we will see you back here tomorrow.